How's it going, Ram fans? Welcome back to the best show CTV has to offer, the Sports Show. I'm Leah Cackowski.
And I'm Mike Walsh. And man, Leah, we have missed so much basketball, nearly 50 days worth. But we're here to catch you up on all things CSU athletics. So with that, here are your top stories for the week.
It was a stressful, nerve-wracking weekend in Rams hoops for both squads. Did either end with a sigh of relief? We shall see.
CSU star guard McKenna Hofschild has impressed all year, but just exactly how good is she? We'll give you a striking comparison for her mastery.
And finally, we debate which college basketball teams are truly in the championship hunt and out of pocket.
All of that and more on CTV Sports, which starts right now. We begin, of course, with some CSU basketball. And why don't we start with the women, because I mean, they do have more wins than the men. The Rams have been crushing it mainly in conference play after an overtime heartbreaker to UNLV on New Year's Eve. Colorado State came into Saturday riding a 6-game winning streak. And speaking of which, that's exactly who CSU played last Saturday. The opening two quarters between the two were as close as you would expect. After UNLV got off to a 14-5 run, CSU started to find its footing. The Rams penetrated the paint, opening up opportunities for effortless buckets. This series of events helped cut the deficit to just 3 by time half rolled around. The well-attended Moby crowd anticipated a nail-biter in the remaining 20 minutes, and why wouldn't they? Both teams, though different in their styles of play, complemented each other pretty well. Unfortunately, the lead never flipped, and the Rebels, though close, seemed to be in total control. I don't know what it was, but UNLV just seemed more under control. Whether it was 15-footers or drives to the net, the Rebels knew their identity. And more importantly, they kept McKenna Hofschild at bay. CSU refused to go away, though, thanks to a pair of Megan Boyd triples. But in the end, UNLV survived, stealing a huge win on the road and separating themselves a little bit at the top of the standings. And looking more specifically at the stat lines, as you can see, the Rams actually outperformed the Rebels in a bevy of categories. However, it was UNLV's consistency primarily inside the arc that helped elevate them to a 63-58 victory. After the loss, head coach Ryan Williams noted on his group's lack of sharpness throughout the contest.
And I don't want to say we weren't composed, but we weren't composed enough. You know, we let their extended soft press kind of, I don't know, disrupt us enough. And, you know, we didn't get organized in our zone offense very fast. You know, it took us a while to process, and I don't know why that was, but, you know, that's what I'll take away from this.
And a regular season sweep never tastes good, but hey, the Rams are still sitting with a 6-2 record in league play. So it's not the end of the world, and they have an immediate chance to get back on track. Leah, what can you tell us about Thursday's matchup?
Well, Mike, I'm really hoping that the Rams can use this tough loss as motivation because they have an opportunity to bounce back quickly on Thursday against New Mexico. And let me tell you, I have a good feeling about this one. These two faced off not too long ago, and to be honest, it was a pretty lopsided from the onset. CSU led an assault that had the Lobos down 23-9 in the first 10 minutes of play. And from there, New Mexico never mustered enough offense to make it close. Both rely on their guard play for points, so whoever is off in the backcourt is sure to lose. And that happened to New Mexico 17 days ago. But perhaps it was Moby Madness that rattled the Lobos, which is fair. They won't have to worry about that this time around, though, because CSU must now travel down to the pit. But I'm not too worried, and here's why. Overall, Colorado State is just the better team, outdoing the Lobos pretty much everywhere. CSU sits in the top tier of the Mountain West standings, while New Mexico is scrambling above 500 at 11-9. However, the Lobos remain competitive, including a recent 4-point loss to number 2 in the conference, San Diego State. Both groups like scoring, but CSU is a little more efficient, most notably from the perimeter. That said, here are a few UNM players to watch out for. The Duff sisters and Shai Magruder constitute the bulk of the Lobos offense. They are the unit's leading scorers, and Tay Duff has a whopping 57 made threes all season. Yes, 57 out of 152 attempts. making her only 38% accurate. Despite being a volume shooter, that amount she's made is still way more than anybody on CSU's end. But should Ram fans be worried? I would say no, because CSU is just more reliable. If the Rams stick to their game plan and don't turn the ball over, they should take a dub back to Fort Collins. Okay, that was on the women's side. Mike, did the men at least get a win during the weekend? I mean, they were playing 5-win Wyoming.
Thanks, Leah. And well, can at least the fact that it was in Laramie be a valid excuse? The Cowboys were winless in conference play entering Saturday and had an abysmal 5-13 record overall. Their best win is Louisiana Tech. But unfortunately for the Rams, the records did not tell the tale, and here to dig deeper into what went wrong for the Rams is our very own Madeline Davis. Take it away.
Yeah, Mike, to say this loss was a sloppy disappointment would probably be an understatement. The Rams came into this one looking to bounce back after another home overtime loss, this time against the San Diego State Aztecs. And while that game might have ended in an L, the Rams actually put up much more of a fight than anticipated, which led fans to believe that they could easily take on a dismal 5-13 Wyoming team, which had 4 players out with injury going into Saturday's matchup. Before we really break down what went wrong for CSU, let's take a look at some of the highlights real quick. You're going to see history made right here. Isaiah Stevens assist number 531. John Tonje makes the jumper for 3. Now we're going to see a play that Wyoming did a lot. Ethan Anderson digs in the paint. He passes it off to Hunter Thompson, who hits a 3. This play hurt the Rams a lot in that first half. Now we're going to see, this is where CSU really started to pick up some momentum. A Patrick Cartier steal, a little Euro step block with the dunk. John Tonje, look at that. That gave him momentum, but that momentum stopped with 2.9 seconds left in the game. Jalen Lake fouls Noah Reynolds. After this, CSU has 2.9 seconds. Call a timeout, try and run that UNLV play. It does not work this time. Wyoming wins 58-57. Everyone storms the court. It's Wyoming's first conference win. And while it might be easy to blame the refs and that questionable foul against Jalen Lake, that's not where CSU lost this game. Instead, it was the 12 turnovers in the first half that essentially led to 8 free points for the Cowboys. The Rams went into the locker room quite deflated, but they did seemingly get themselves together, outscoring Wyoming 36-23 in the second half. But yet that advantage was not enough to overcome the initial setback, seeing as the Rams did lose by 1 point in the last couple of seconds. If this 1-point loss was not shocking enough, let's take a look at something even more shocking, the team stats. If you're looking at these stats thinking, CSU's leading in nearly every category, how could they lose? You're thinking like the rest of us. As you can see here, the Rams outscored the Cowboys in field goal percentage, assists, and rebounds. Yes, even rebounds, an area where the Rams are notorious for struggling. But like I mentioned earlier, the areas that really hurt CSU were turnovers and steals. Before we move on to individual stats though, let's take a moment to emphasize just how bad the shooting was. The Cowboys shot a dismal 40.4% from the field, and they still won. Absolutely no team should be able to win a game with that type of performance. But honestly, the Rams' 44.9% isn't anything to boast about either. Just bad shooting all around. Now jumping into the individual stats, with no surprise, senior guard Isaiah Stevens led the Rams in every category with 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. Stevens was also only 3 assists away from what would have been the first triple-double in CSU men's basketball history. And while Stevens didn't accomplish that, he did break the all-time record for career assists with 531. And the Rams saw 2 more players reach double digits, with Patrick Cartier sitting closely behind Stevens at 13 and John Tonje with 12. Looking over to Wyoming, the Cowboys can thank their talented sophomore guard Noah Reynolds for most of their production, as he scored 17 points, while fellow guard and USC transfer Ethan Anderson was sitting close behind at 13. Overall, this was a rough outing for the Rams, and honestly, that's kind of been the story of the season thus far. But CSU will be back on the road this weekend to take on a very talented Boise State team. But who knows? The Rams have seemingly been able to pull off some magic in these underdog matchups. I'll be right back here on Thursday to give you a detailed look into what is to expect from that matchup. But in the meantime, back to you, Mike and Leah.
Well, Mike, I am not going to lie. This is not the conference start I was expecting from the Rams this season.
It's not the start I expected from CSU at all. I mean, after a great season last year, making the tournament, just making the tournament at all, and now we're doing this, it's just not good.
I know. I really hope they find a way to turn something
Yeah.
around using their main guys, but we're just going to have to wait and see with Boise.
No, for real. Stevens needs to take this team over, needs to lead this team, and they need to get more wins.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Well, when we come back, hear more about how a host of other D1 programs performed this past weekend in Rams athletics.
Plus, I'll give you a rundown of the Mountain West teams that could go dancing come March. All of that and more right here on CTV Sports.
Welcome back from the break, Rams.
We'll stay indoors, but jump into the pool for a moment as the Colorado State women's swim team and dive team continued to impress. The Rams wrapped up the Air Force Winter Invitational last Saturday, and though they didn't quite take first on the second day, that honor went to Air Force. It was still a quality showing, with one race in particular taking front and center. The butterfly has been a CSU specialty so far this season, and that trend continued this past weekend. Junior Lucy Matheson led a 1-2-3 finish in the 100-yard event, followed by teammates Amanda Hoffman and Hannah Sykes. Sophomore Katie McClelland clocked a 27.60, providing the Rams with half of the top 8. Leah O'Connor and Aaron Dawson added some additional scoring. CSU also posted a pair of victories in the 200 medley and the 400 freestyle relay, contributing to overall a productive day. It definitely gave head coach Christopher Woodard a good idea of where his squad stands. And this couldn't be more crucial as the Rams prepare for their last match of the season, driving 30 miles southeast for a date with Northern Colorado this Friday. Hopefully they can make it back-to-back years of undefeated campaigns. But now let's head back to the land. Leah, I heard there was another CSU team in the Springs this weekend. Is that right?
Well, Mike, though that might be true, it wasn't that simple, because CSU's track and field team was actually scheduled for the cornfields in Lincoln, Nebraska on Friday and Saturday to compete in 2 separate events. However, as you all know, Mother Nature had other plans, initiating a Colorado winter storm that prohibited travel east. The trip to Lincoln was canceled and a relaxing weekend seemed probable. However, in the short turnaround, head coach Brian Bedard announced on Friday a trip to the Springs would be made instead. More specifically, the UCCS Invitational. And the results were exceptional. The Rams absolutely dominated the field events, with 7 Rams claiming the top of the podium in 8 different events. Argentina native Mariano Kiss on the right was the highlight, placing first in the both men's weight room and shot put. Another notable performance was Colorado State newcomer Tay Raymond. The BYU transfer posted a mark of 6.2 meters in the women's long jump. Not only was this a few personal record for Raymond, but it was currently ranked 2nd in the conference and 15th in the nation. Oh, and it's also 2nd in Colorado State history. Wow. Other first-place finishers include Maya Lenzar and Michaela Hawkins. Lesnar, for her part, posted a distance in the shot put that now currently leads the conference and sits 13th in the nation. 3 other Rams in women's high jump, men's triple jump, and women's pole vault rounded out first-place outings. CSU hopes to continue its indoor success next weekend at the Colorado Invitational in Boulder on Friday, as well as returning back to the Springs for the Mountain Lion on both Friday and Saturday. I must admit, it's fun talking about sports that usually don't make the headlines in the media. That's why we here at CTV have a competitive advantage, isn't it? Okay, nonetheless, college basketball is always on the mind of sports fans these days. And in a way, I don't blame them. March Madness is indeed the nation's best postseason. Now, the Mountain West had an 0-4 showing last year, including our Rams getting knocked out by eventual Sweet 16 representative Michigan. So now in 2023, are there any Mountain West teams that can change the fortunes? Well, we have the answers to that question. Mike, take it away.
Thanks, Leah. And yeah, while the Mountain West hasn't impressed too much this season, it's still been very competitive to say the least. And I think at least 2 teams can make serious arguments for at-large bids come March. First, we start with a team sitting atop the standings with an in-conference record of 6-1. San Diego State is currently the lone survivor up there, with Nevada just below them with 6-2 in conference. But SDSU is a monster of a team, with Matt Bradley and Lamont Butler leading their team in scoring and Nathaniel Mensah holding it down in the paint with 31 blocks this year. Their team averages almost 3.5 blocks on the year, so definitely a defensive team to watch out for, and could definitely make a tournament run with that conference record and winning that Mountain West tournament. Then we move to New Mexico, who was the best overall record, but was in a four-way tie for second in the league and now currently sit all the way in third. Nevada obviously moving up as they just beat them last night in an overtime thriller, but they've had some solid wins as of late over teams like San Jose, Boise State, and Colorado State. Obviously a good team, and obviously with that huge good record for them, they will be a threat to the tournament come March. And while those two are in good position, there definitely could be some shakeups. One thing for certain, though, is CSU will not be dancing this year, most likely at least. CSU will always have our hearts, but this year will not be the time for a magical tourney run. I have to believe that what's great about college basketball is that CSU still has a very, very small chance. All they have to do is win the conference tournament, and the Rams acquire an automatic bid. Now, Leah, back over to you.
All right, thanks, Mike. We might have to keep an eye on Boise State, Utah State, and Nevada as well, all of whom are on the bubble. And yet, none of those teams has a player quite as dominant as CSU's McKenna Hofschild. On this, I'll bring you Cack's closeout on the inside scoop of what makes her so special.
Worried about your friend but don't know how to reach out? You can say how are you or get a fake tattoo. You can ask with an app if it works for you. You can chat with them in VR. It's so good. If you think you should check in, yeah, you should. Whatever gets you talking. Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Whatever gets you talking. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
Back from the break, Rams, and welcome to the first Cack's closeout of the spring. For tonight, it's all things McKenna Hofschild, as she's been flashing some record-breaking numbers for her senior campaign. What drives her success? You'll hear it on Cack's closeout, which starts right now. Okay, to start it off, Hofschild is on pace to have not only a memorable season, but perhaps an even better one than all-time CSU legend Becky Hammond. As you can see, her numbers best Hammond in almost every category. I mean, 52% behind the arc, that is insane. So what's the key component that makes it all happen? Let's take a look. So McKenna Hofschild is the leader of this basketball court, but she has a lot of abilities just besides shooting. She's a leader in team assists for a reason, so let's see what makes that happen. This is the first game of the season against BYU, and as you can see, it's late in the third quarter and it's pretty close. So she has a couple of options here. She's able to drive the ball in the paint, and she can either go out wide for the three, but in this kind of scenario, she knows that she only needs a two. So right here, she has the ball in the paint, and she can see that Clark is going to make her way underneath the basket for the over-the-shoulder pass to just make the easy layup. That is smart basketball by McKenna right here. But fast forward to the play right after, again, driving the ball right into the paint. But in this scenario, she wants to seal the deal and get the main lead for the Rams, so she has a perfect angle to get it out to Thurman to actually make the easy three just right there. I mean, she knows how to run the court, like I said. And speaking of driving, okay, she does take it herself from time to time as well. So McKenna Hofschild is a shocking 5'5", and right here she has two defenders on here. Most would be in trouble, but in McKenna's case, she finds a way to get her momentum through these defenders in order to make the layup herself. I mean, that's a very hard thing to do for any basketball player, let alone when you're outsized. And okay, I mean, her jumper is fantastic as well. Trend of the night is her being in the paint. And so this is against Utah State. You know, obviously another defender is on her, but in this situation, she finds a way to make her Kobe pivot and sink it right in. She makes it look way too easy for all of us. Okay, talk of the town, her 3-point. So, I mean, all in all, she just has really amazing form. She gets perfect spots in order to set up, plant her feet, and make one fluid motion just like how she does right here, and this is one of her most impressive games of the season so far. She makes it look way too easy. All in all, McKenna Hofschild is one of the greatest of all time here at Colorado State, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the season holds for her in this squad. Mike, back to you.
Thanks, Leah. And with that, Rams, we'll take another break, but don't go away just yet. Because the three of us will debate the elites of college basketball, which programs are going to be contenders to cut down the nets in Houston or pretenders. We'll discuss right after this.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back from the break, Rams. Now, though we haven't seen stellar college basketball here in Fort Collins, aside from the women, this field this year is arguably the most competitive it's been yet, with no obvious #1 team. But perhaps that's where we disagree. Tonight we'll identify a plethora of schools and give our opinion on whether we think they're a contender or a pretender for cutting down the nets in Houston come March. So let's begin. Okay, so the first team we have up is Purdue.
Okay.
And personally, I know Mike has some pretty strong feelings about Purdue. I know that Mike thinks that they're top in the country. So honestly, Mike, let's just throw it to you.
Hey, I think Purdue is top of the country because they have an unguardable player in Zach Edey. He's 7'4" from Canada. He's averaging almost 22 points and 13 rebounds. Just insane numbers, and they're just such a good team. They play so well together. If you hear their coaches talk, they talk about how teamwork and how important that is to them. I just think they're a great overall team.
I mean, it's hard to argue with 7'4".
I agree.
I mean,
unguardable.
Yeah, it truly is. It's really interesting. It's interesting to see how Purdue grew from last year to this year, because last year they were also a very, very strong team. I mean, they were consistently ranked throughout the season.
It was Edey's first year though.
Yeah,
so that's why.
Yeah,
you get the 7'4" guy more practice. It's gonna help.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Leah, what are your thoughts on Purdue?
I mean, height doesn't always matter. I just talked about McKenna Hofschild, and she's also a beast.
True.
But I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I think they're absolutely dominant contenders. They're ranked #1 for a reason. They've been dominating this entire season. You said it all. They have great team fundamentals. It seems like they just know how to work together. So I definitely think they're going to make it far this year.
I mean, it's hard to argue with it. And now another team that has seen the #1 spot a couple times, Houston. I mean, they're a team that kind of, I don't know that you want to say they came out of nowhere, but they weren't one of those top teams from last year that you were like, yeah, they're going to be really, really strong.
I think they were a middle ground team last year, but I think this year they got a lot of seniors coming back. Personally, I think they're a pretender. But I do see the argument for why they are a contender, but they don't motivate me that much because their only big win is against Virginia, and everyone else they played is just not good to me. So I don't think we've seen enough for them to call them contenders.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I think that they had one of those out of conference schedules that really kind of it allowed them to be super good.
Yeah, exactly.
You look at a team like New Mexico who had a not a terrible out of conference schedule, but not a great one. And now you see them in conference and they're not performing quite like they should be. But I think I would also agree that I think Houston is kind of a pretender, but I can't argue with their talent.
Yeah, I can't either.
Yeah, I think their guard game is really strong, and even though their conference schedule isn't as spectacular as others. I mean, we as CSU could have taken advantage of that more, and they really did to solidify that really, really good start. So with that, I think if they're able to keep momentum going, even in conference play, I think they're a contender.
Okay.
I'm going to disagree with you, Mike.
I
think they're going to make it this year.
Okay.
That's a good opinion.
Okay, the next team we're going to talk about is a team that started, no one really expected them to do anything, and they're kind of coming out of nowhere. They are finally pretty high ranked, Kansas State.
Yeah, I mean, they had a tough loss early to Butler, but that's the beginning of the season. We don't really need to count that. It doesn't need to count. I think they beat Kansas, who I thought was the best team at the time, and that just completely blew my mind. So that's why I put them at contender.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Kansas State versus Kansas. That's like CSU playing Wyoming. For Kansas State, that's their Super Bowl.
Yeah, and
like
they won it.
They did. They did,
but they've also won all their other games except for one. So, I mean, they're a pretty convincing team to me.
Okay, yeah, but College of Charleston has won all of their games except for one, and we're not talking about that.
Yeah, but we're talking about conference play, and some conferences are too easy for some schools.
Yeah, I mean, they are in a very strong conference. I think they're a little bit of pretenders. I don't think they're a bad team, but I don't think they're going to win.
Not complete pretenders. They're just kind of pretenders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, this one stumped me too, because honestly, I think of Kansas State and I'm like, what just happened? Like, I don't know. They're not a traditional basketball school in my opinion. Like KU, I can't believe that. Like that is a huge, huge win. And I think they might be kind of pretender just because I don't know enough about them, and I think their conference is really good. So I'm with you, Madeline. It's a kind of pretender.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Well, this next team, if you talk to the experts, they're saying that it's potentially the best team in the country. Alabama, I mean, they've been the talk of the nation. People are saying, is Alabama a basketball school now?
It might be. It might be both. I mean, at this point, it might be both.
They're not really football anymore, though. Let's be honest.
I mean, come on. There's one down here.
No, I think Alabama's. I think they're a fun team to watch, and I think they're an interesting team. Obviously, they've been in a bit of controversy lately.
Yeah, but we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah. And I personally think that's just a little hard as a team, and so I think that could kind of even throw them a little bit under, which they're not expecting.
I mean, they're on a big win streak right now, and they're beating teams by a lot of points. I mean, Missouri, who I thought was a good team, they just wiped them. So I don't know. I think they're a contender easily.
No, I agree, Mike. Like you said, I think they're 8-win streak right now. That's insane. I kind of, they're probably going to keep it going, and everyone is saying that they're legit, so they're legit.
Yeah.
I mean, can't argue with the SEC. It's a good conference.
Yeah.
Now, moving over to the Pac-12. Okay. Arizona, what do we feel about them? Obviously, they were good last year, and they're good again this year. Pac-12, pretty strong conference. Not the top conference, but it's strong.
But I think that they got exposed last year in the tournament too. So I think they're a pretender. They have lost this to Washington State and Oregon, almost back-to-back games in the last few weeks here. I just don't think they're a contender. I think they showed us that last year in March Madness. I think they're a good team in their conference, but then they don't do much outside of it.
Yeah, I mean, Pac-12, there was talk last year that Mountain West was better than them.
I want Arizona to be good. Like, I know they beat UCLA, but Mike, I'm going to have to agree with you because they ruined my bracket last year, and I haven't quite gotten over it. And again, they're losing to teams that they shouldn't be losing to. So, no, pretender, 100%.
Okay.
Here, Madeline.
Yeah, I do think they're a contender.
Okay.
I think they're pretty good. I think they're pretty good. But moving on to our last team, we got Virginia, which, 2019 national champions. How do we feel? How do we feel about them?
I think they lost Jay Wright, a great coach. I mean, it was obviously a big loss for them, but they just don't have a lot of wins that are good to me. Again, don't motivate me. What do you think?
I don't think they're doing well enough in their conference either. It's just kind of, they're hit or miss. They've been really inconsistent, and I just don't think that's going to be enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're traditionally a good program, and I like to root for them. My mom's from Virginia.
I mean, they got a good record.
Yeah, they do.
They're not contenders to me.
After missing the tournament, it's nice to see them doing well.
Yeah, I agree.
And with that, Rams, that's all the sports action we have for tonight. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for the first spring rendition of CTV Cooks. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night, and we'll see you then.